Good morning, scholars, and welcome back to Learning with Mrs. Preemy. Today, our learning goal is I can compare and contrast a grizzly bear and a black bear. We are working on Frontier Explorers Lesson 9. Let's take a look at this globe right here. Oops, wrong. Alright, let's take a look at the globe right here. And if I spin it around, you can see right here South Africa. This is South America. And over here is Africa, right here. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you there. Alright. This is North America. This entire body of land is North America. If we look, I'm wondering if you can remember, where is the Atlantic Ocean? The Atlantic Ocean is over here on the east side of the North American continent. And I'm wondering if you can remember where the Pacific Ocean is. Go ahead and point to it. Right, I know you said that the Pacific Ocean was over here on the west side of North America. And if we bring this in, we can see this vaguely. See this line right here. This line is the line between the United States of America right here and Canada. Okay, and you see this line. This is Alaska, and it's part of the United States of America. And this southern line right here divides the United States of America with Mexico. So this line kind of shows us where the Mexico border is. All right. If we bring this map in a little bit, we can kind of see where the Appalachian Mountains are. I'm wondering if you could go ahead and point to the Appalachian Mountains. I'm pretty sure you said the Appalachian Mountains are on this side. And if you can remember where the Rocky Mountains are. I thought I heard you say that these are the Rocky Mountains over here, and that would be absolutely right. And I'm wondering if we can remember what city it is where the Mississippi River and the Missouri River come together. I'm going to zoom in on it. It is in Missouri, right on the Missouri border here. Let's keep going in. Let's see if we can find where they come together. Right here, this line shows, well, it's really hard to see actually. It's over here a little ways. It's this little white dotted line. On the west side is Missouri. See the state of Missouri here. And on the east side, I believe that this is Kentucky over here. And then to the north, just of Kentucky, we have Indiana right here. This city, and there's Illinois. This city is St. Louis right here. In St. Louis, Missouri, is where these rivers come together. If we keep zooming in, I'm pretty sure we're going to find it, but I believe, well, this right here is the Mississippi River, and it joins together. Do you see the Illinois River right there? They join together right here in St. Louis. And then if you come down a little ways, I think we're going to find the Missouri River right here. There it is, the Missouri River right here. And there's the Mississippi and the Illinois River where it joins together right here. So right in this exact place is where the Missouri River meets the Mississippi River. Now, I'm trying to think back to what we learned, and we learned something about, what did we call it, the Louisiana Purchase. And for that, I think we can see it better if I bring up this picture right here. So again, those are the Rocky Mountains, and this is the Mississippi River, and the Louisiana Purchase started with the city of New Orleans down here, and it included all of this territory. So that is a lot of territory. So let me think about the 3 tasks that Lewis and Clark were to accomplish. I remember this one, and I'll bet you do too. And I'll bet you said that the first task was that they were going to make friends with the Native Americans. So here we are making friends with the Native Americans. And the second task, I think you said, was to follow the Missouri River over to the Pacific Ocean. Because here's the Atlantic and here's the Pacific. We want to know, does it go all the way to the Pacific Ocean? And I'm thinking the third task, I remember now, I'll bet you do too. They were going to take plant and animal samples back to the president to see what kind of plants and animals were growing there. Remember, in the last read aloud, Lewis and Clark spent the winter with the Mandan people and met Sacagawea, who they decided to hire as a translator and a guide. In today's read aloud, Lewis and Clark will make more discoveries on their expedition. Listen to find out what Lewis and Clark discover and how they're going to keep track of what they discovered. That's interesting, isn't it? So here we go. Here is our story. Right here. This is where they are parting ways. After Lewis and Clark sent some of the team back east with reports and scientific samples for President Jefferson, the captains and the rest of the crew continued west. They rode in 2 of their original pirogues, plus 6 new canoes made from hollowed out trees. These canoes, about 30 feet long and 6 feet wide, were hard to balance. More than once, as the men were getting used to them, the canoes overturned in midair, forcing the men to fish out wet supplies before going on. The men had to get supplies out of the water because the boats had flipped over and the water and the in the water and the supplies had fell out. Despite this, Lewis wrote in his journal that the men were happy and healthy. So even though they had to get their stuff out of the river, they were happy. There we go. Soon they left behind the partial flat plains. Wait, let me read that again. Soon they left behind the flat plains and entered hilly land. Now the Missouri River became more difficult to travel. Forests of the western red cedars lined the banks of the river. So remember, this is the forest, what they're calling the western red cedars. Okay. These beautiful trees were so important to the Native Americans of the area that some of the Native Americans called themselves the people of the red cedar, performing special ceremonies before chopping down the huge evergreens. So an evergreen, remember, an evergreen stays green all year long. Okay. Lewis and Clark knew it would be impossible to take an entire tree with them because of its gigantic size. Almost 200 feet above ground. That's as tall as a 20-story building. Nevertheless, the tree was so important to the lives of the Native Americans that they knew they must gather samples and record or take notes on its many uses. They drew pictures and collected branches and cones and seeds. As they learned more about the western red cedar from the Native Americans in the area, both Lewis and Clark wrote about the importance of the western red cedar in their journals. A journal is a book in which you can write notes or stories and draw pictures. So remember our math journals, and I kept telling you your journal is a story that you are telling. Okay? The people and the animal of the Northwest relied on the tree for their existence. The Native Americans used the bark of the tree to weave mats, baskets, and clothing, and used the wood to build canoes. Elk ate the leaves, and shoots of the enormous trees. Bears hibernated or slept through the winter in the howl of the cedar log. Look at how big this tree is. Can you imagine laying inside this huge tree? The men heard often of the bears called grizzly bears that made their homes in the hollowed out logs of the cedars. So as they made their way up the Missouri, William Clark warned, keep a sharp eye out for grizzly bears. So, what do you think Clark means when he says keep a sharp eye out for grizzly bears? Yeah, you should be aware of them at all times, right? Even if you don't see them, they could be there. One of the hunters said, "Don't worry, Captain. We've seen plenty of bears before back in Kentucky." Black bears, yes. Grizzly bears, no. From what I hear, here, it's like the difference between a house cat and a lion. Does Captain Clark think that grizzly bears are like black bears? So this is a grizzly bear right here. And this is a black bear, obviously. Does he think they're similar? I don't think so. I think if he's calling them the difference between a house cat, can you think of what a house cat that's the cats that live in our house versus a lion. You know, a house cat is pretty tame and pretty mild. And a lion you probably wouldn't want to bring home with you. So I think he's trying to say that the grizzly bear is not very safe. One day, Lewis and another man were out hunting along the riverbank. Suddenly, they saw two giant grizzly bears up ahead. The bears rose up on their hind legs, up and up, until they stood 8 feet tall. Then, roaring, the bears charged. Raising their rifles and taking careful aim, Lewis and his companion, or friend, shot one of the bears, but the other one kept coming right at them with frightening speed. "Run!" shouted Lewis, and the two men turned and ran for their lives. Lewis and the other man stopped running to take another shot, turned, took aim, and fired at the same instant. The loud bang was followed by a tense moment as the bear suddenly stopped running. It held still for a moment and then toppled over, or fell. Only when they were sure the grizzly bear was dead did Lewis and his companion carefully approach the animal. Lewis later wrote in his journal that the bear weighed between 500 and 600 pounds. It was 8.5 feet tall. That's taller than 2 first graders standing on top of one another. After this frightening chase, Lewis told the whole party, "From now on, we must always move about and do even the simplest action in parties or groups of 2 or more. One man alone up against a grizzly would not stand a chance." So, which task or tasks did Lewis and Clark accomplish in the story today? They did discover some new plants and animals. What was one plant that Lewis and Clark discovered? Let's go back and look at the pictures. It was a good picture. Well, that was one. I really like this picture right here. Yeah, they discovered the red cedar. Can you describe this red cedar? Let's see. I think the red cedar, it was very tall. And it has needles on it like a pine tree. And it is an evergreen tree. Good job. Could Lewis and Clark bring a red cedar back with them? No, they could not. But why? Look at the size of that tree. It's definitely too big. Remember, this was before cars existed. They would have had to carry it. And what could they do instead? if they couldn't bring it back, they decided to draw it in their journals, right? What was one animal that Lewis and Clark discovered? Right here. I don't want you to get confused by this picture either, because the black bear was a bear they had already been familiar with, that it was in Kentucky. And remember, Kentucky was explored long before they got to this point. So the new one that they discovered was the grizzly bear. Okay. Okay, how are these two bears the same? They're both bears. They're very different too. So how are they different? Well, I'm pretty sure you said that this black bear was smaller than the grizzly bear. And the grizzly bear is brown, and this is black and white. And the grizzly bear is also much larger. So why did Lewis tell the group they must do things in parties of two or more? Okay. They should do things in party or of two or more because it's the grizzly bear right here is very dangerous. Okay. In the read out loud, you heard, nevertheless, the western red cedar was so important to the lives of the Native Americans that Lewis and Clark knew they must gather samples and record its many uses. Say the word record. So when you record something, that means you write it down or keep track of it. Mia recorded how many cars passed her house in an hour. Wondering what kind of things you record. Go ahead and pause the video and talk about it with somebody that's there with you. Did you pause the video? What word were we talking about? Oh, right, record. Exactly. I remember when we were recording in our math journals not long ago. I hope you remember that too. Lewis and Clark recorded all their discoveries and events in a journal. Pretend that you are one of the members of the Corps of Discovery that are traveling with Lewis and Clark. And I want you to think about everything that you heard about Lewis and Clark's travels over the past few days. So you are going to draw a picture, like you're going to make like a journal on a piece of paper, even though you may not have an actual journal right now. So I want you to draw a picture of the event that you can think about that Lewis and Clark has experienced along their journeys, their expedition. And I want you to write at least 3 sentences that tell me something about their expedition and what they discovered. And go ahead and upload a copy of your picture to me on Class Dojo. All right, so today's learning goal is I can compare and contrast a grizzly bear and a black bear. I want to thank you for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we talk about rivers and mountains on Lesson 10. Until then, have a great day.